Leni Riefenstahl was born in Berlin on August 22, 1902. She began her career as an interpretive dancer, but unfortunately injured her knee. However, this introduced Leni into acting and film production. She slowly progressed in filmmaking, from creating nature films to acting in Arnold Frank's motion picture film, which is shot in the Alps. Riefenstahl was the star of the show, in which she took the part of a daring female athlete. As an admired actress, she directed her first ever film, Das Blue Licht, The Blue Light, in 1932. This film was well liked and caught the eye of Adolf Hitler, who was rising into political power. Like Leni, Hitler considered himself to have artistic ambitions. During the same year, she encountered him giving a speech at a rally and was fascinated by the way he captivated the audience. The foundation was set in place, and the two began to work together to create Nazi propaganda. Hitler saw Riefenstahl as a director who could use aesthetics to produce an image of a strong Germany imbued with Wagnerian motifs of power and beauty. Little did she know, this new relationship formed the basis of Nazi propaganda that would soon control the citizens of Germany. With Hitler's manipulative speeches and Riefenstahl's calculating films, they would make people believe that Germany was the most powerful country in the world. In 1933, he asked Leni to shoot a short film called Der Sieg des Glaubens, The Victory of Faith. This took place at the annual Nuremberg Nazi rally and was a template for her more popular film Triumph of the Will, which took place in 1934. The Victory of Faith was not as well known and featured a former Nazi member and military commander, Ernst Röhm, who was once an ally of Hitler. He was later executed in 1934 during the Night of the Long Knives Purge. Hitler feared that the paramilitary SA were becoming too strong, so he instructed his elite SS soldiers to murder Röhm. Due to him being a part of the film The Victory of Faith, many original copies were deleted so that history could be erased, so to speak. This decision made by Hitler marked the beginning of his manipulative ways surrounding what the public was allowed to see. Furthermore, in the same year, President Paul von Hindenburg died, and Hitler became the president along with Chancellor. He declared himself Führer, which means leader in English. In result, this caused a total reconstructing of the government, since he wished to reinforce the perceived legitimacy of the regime and wanted to prepare Germany's civilians for war. So this is what led Riefenstahl to make one of the most powerful propaganda films ever produced in history. These actions, condoned by Adolf Hitler, demonstrate the importance of propaganda for the Nazi Party. Propaganda is defined by the information, especially of a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view. Triumphs of the Will starts off by introducing the film and who it is produced for. It shows a plane flying in through the clouds in the serene atmosphere that gets interrupted by the mass of people down the ground. All of a sudden, there's an enormous amount of cheering that takes place upon the arrival of Adolf Hitler. Riefenstahl films the documentary in a way that makes it feel as if she's merely capturing the events that took place, even if the camera was not there, like as if she is observing the parades, mass assemblies, and Hitler's speeches from the eyes of a German citizen. This angle demonstrates how there's a clear difference between Hitler and his followers. Key repetitive aspects of the film were marching soldiers, the waving of the banners with the swastikas present, large amounts of people cheering, and young children smiling. A moment in the film that was iconic was when a small boy went up to Hitler in his car and shook his hand, in which everyone started cheering. Even at one part in the film, it shows a cat that takes notice in Hitler's passing. Even though it appears that everyone is happy, there was quite a bit of turmoil due to President Paul von Hindenburg dying, representing how Riefenstahl deceived the audience. Another part of the film that was altered was the lack of presence of the Wehrmacht. The Wehrmacht were the regular armed forces of Nazi Germany, but were not really displayed in the film. Hitler wanted the propaganda to be focused upon the SS to show that they were superior and that there was a pecking order. This was strategically done to make the Wehrmacht seem inferior and make the SS seem elite. Also in 1933, the first concentration camp was opened, which was majorly downplayed in the film. Even though these actions were brutal, they were justified because of the way the film hides the negatives and only showed the positives. All these elements of the documentary represent how the overall structure of the film is set up in a way to show the great strength of the Nazi Party versus the weak opposition. It shows how the triumph of the will starts strong and ends strong, and there is only one way that the plot evolves, which is up. Riefenstahl used many filming techniques, such as using props, special bridges, and towers, so that she could capture the amount of people from a wide bird's-eye view. Also, dollies were used during the scenes when troops marched along the streets. Although these shots were quite effective, they were not really anything new. Filming techniques like these were not exceptionally creative during the time due to the fact that rotating camera shots for panoramas have been around since the 1890s. The only thing that was really new was the mass amount of people present in these shots. The way the cameras were systematically placed within the parades represented how there were so many people who supported Adolf Hitler, which was shown over and over again throughout the documentary. Despite the fact that these scenes were definitely overplayed, they proved a point. The point was not to only display the attendance of the civilians cheering their leader on, but the volume of the civilians cheering their leader on. This film exhibits how the Nazi Party wanted to send a message to their oppositions that they are so mighty and strong that they could afford to produce high-priced propaganda. Propaganda so costly that it ranks as one of the most expensive productions in history. Propaganda alters people's perceptions of history and justifies their immoral behaviors. That is exactly what Hitler wanted. He was a very good public speaker and manipulated his audience in order for them to like him. Leni Riefenstahl was also manipulative and filmed the Nazi Party beside old monuments to represent how there was a pure link between the old and the new. It showed how the film normalized Hitler's actions and the shift in government was bound to happen. It made Hitler appear to not merely be a man, but a god. It was broadcasted to show the legitimacy of the party, and when looking at what happened during World War II, this propaganda worked extremely well. Leni Riefenstahl also filmed a documentary called Olympia in Berlin in the summer of 1936. This film was an amazing demonstration of the Olympics and all the different sports events that took place. There was a lot of controversy surrounding this film because some people believed that it was a form of propaganda, although it is one of the best sports events ever broadcasted. When initially watching the film, it appears that it does a good job displaying all the individuals who took place in the Olympics. However, once World War II grew closer, skeptics became more apprehensive when they were told that this film was not for propaganda purposes. The film is divided into two parts, one being called The Festival of the Nations, which touches on the history of the Olympics and the different traditions such as the opening ceremonies and the many different field events. The second part is called The Festival of Beauty, which features the track and field events of the Berlin Games. Riefenstahl also incorporated background music and commentary into the film. She worked extremely hard to coordinate the music with the images and actually worked with a composer by the name of Herbert Windt. It was immensely difficult to harmonize video with the sound, so it was astonishing when she did achieve it. Olympia is simply a documentary or Nazi propaganda. It is really hard to determine what her intentions were, considering this film was technically produced by the same country that intended to take over the world. However, did Leni really know what Hitler's true intentions were at the time, or was she mostly focused on creating such an inspiring documentary? Well, when looking at specific facts, it was hard to fathom that she was so oblivious to what was going on around her. She was a very smart individual who had great insight and instincts. She had the ability to organize meetings with Hitler, and in order to accomplish her goals, she had to work within the political structures of the Nazi Party. It is really hard to believe that she was completely unaware of Adolf Hitler's motives when making this film. As well, since the government was very controlling of what could be published during the time, they would have wanted the film to portray Germany in a certain way to make them seem admirable. When watching the film, many different athletes were featured, which may have made them look innocent, but this also could have worked in Hitler's favor. It would make the National Socialist Party appear to be friendly and accepting of all the other countries, but in reality, this could have been a clever tactic to get individuals to like the party more. Furthermore, Riefenstahl did make the Triumph of the Will before this film, so she was obviously aware of what Hitler wanted. Although there was some speculation around the authenticity of the film, other people did feel that it was quite unbiased. This film did win a prize at the 1938 Film Festival in Venice. Compared to The Triumph of the Will, this film was extremely expensive to produce and required a large crew. She was in total control of the productions, and her thoughts trumped everyone else's, but she still edited the film to fit within Nazi standards. Riefenstahl also worked alongside a man named Josef Goebbels, who was Hitler's propaganda minister. There was one point while filming when an African-American track runner named Jesse Owens was about to compete against German competitors, but Goebbels wanted the cameras to be turned off. Leni refused and insisted that she would keep filming. This ultimately goes to show that she was really trying to be unbiased while filming this documentary. However, It is still unsure whether she was going against Goebbels and Hitler's wishes or if she was complying to what they demanded. Overall, Leni Riefenstahl was very involved with the Nazi Party and helped Hitler manipulate viewers to believe that Germany was the most powerful country in the world at the time. The videos themselves are pretty long, but they are systematically designed in a way to be repetitive so that the message of the films come across effectively. The point of Triumph of the Will was to get citizens to be completely on board with Hitler's actions, so that they were justified. Olympia, on the other hand, was controversial since it was hard for people to decipher whether the purpose was for propaganda or not. However, Hitler did have the last say over what could be published, demonstrating his immense power over everyone.